I was reading the Constitution, trying to find out a place around that section 144, 145, thereabout, where they would say this is the maximum number of days that it could be out for. I couldn't say it. So technically, the president could actually be out for as long as he wants to be, as a matter of fact, according to the Constitution. Now, nobody's having a conversation on that. We're actually discussing human beings and people that the bulk of them would be dead in 30, 40 years. We need to have conversations on how can we have a constitution that is very, very quiet as to how many days the president can be away from, whether for health reasons or whatever. Should it be consecutive days in a year, say 90 days? Should it be a stretch, 60 days? We need to have conversations like that. The constitution is a disaster as far as I'm concerned. That constitution cannot take Nigeria forward. Maybe because, again, Nigerians were not at the table. Nigerians were not at the table at all when this constitution was being written. I think this constitution was written by one or two people, and okay, put this one there. What constitution is that? Ghana, okay, that one looks good. America, okay, add it. We never had, we went to elections in 99. I mean, I couldn't vote, but Nigerians went to elections in 99, not knowing the constitution for which the government that was coming in was going to run under, because all of us were, because the people there were really desperate to have these guys leave. Yeah. But now they've left for 18 years and we're still pushing and dragging this car, and it's not. We need to sit down and completely fix this car so that we can drive it much more smoothly.
Taking things a little left now, just going from what you said about Mr. President being away now, I know you were pretty vocal about the support for change, if I may use those words, from what we were experiencing. Yeah. I mean, you look at the government now and the way things are run generally. I'm not necessarily asking for a rating. How do you feel we are doing? And do you think, because I was talking to the guy earlier and he was talking about the need for independent candidacy, and I got a sense from him that it looks like democracy is not necessarily working the way we are handling it right now. So is this a case of the people? Is it a case of the parties? What are we doing wrong? It's
a case of everything. It's a case of everything. So in 2015, myself and the bulk of Nigerians obviously were about, we don't want these guys. You guys get out. Get out. We don't want you guys. Get out. There was really nothing about, okay, so the guys that are coming in, what's up? It was about, we don't want these guys. So for instance, one fundamental thing that needs to change in 19 is that the conversation has to go beyond what we don't want to really, really defining exactly what we want. You would see that the reality of protests in Nigeria have always been, we no go agree. It's not been about, okay, so what do you want? Why can't we think about the things we want? But outside of that, our democratic system does not work. Not because of democracy, because fundamentally democracy by itself is good. Because democracy basically says it's government by the people. But we know that, for instance, the bulk of the conversation in the National Assembly, sometimes it looks like they are going after some people and say, okay, let's probe this. When you look beneath that conversation, it's probably because that person has not come to settle some people. These are things we see every day. So this democracy has not been built really on the Nigerian people. And then it takes us back to the beginning of this particular republic, which was not built on the people again. It was the constitution that was not about the Nigerian people. So everything is wrong with every space, as a matter of fact. I'm not saying, okay, let's crumble the entire space, but many things are wrong. For instance, if you're a good guy, I know you are very interested in Nigeria. But if you try to become the governor of Anambra State, for instance, you would not spend less than 10 billion naira, no matter what your ideas are. Where are you going to get 10 billion naira from? So even when we go back to independent candidacy, we'll still begin to have issues. Some people are talking about not too young to run. I believe in that idea, but I also thought about it. So I know a guy that really has quite a lot of influence in the state it comes from. But one advantage that state has is that this person's children are not up to the age of being governors. And I'm absolutely sure that if these children were up to that age, they would be running. So when you say not too young to run, are you building not too young to run on a structure that is fair to everybody? No. So if you're not building it on that structure, it means that you're just giving the politicians an opportunity to, when they are 90 and 95 and they cannot do a Mugabe, to just let their kids take over the system. So we need to define all the things that we battle and fight for, so that we're not really just changing one reality to the other, but not so it looks like we're moving, but it's oscillatory in the same spot, but movement is happening. We need to do much better than that.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll wrap up this very interesting conversation, so please do not go anywhere.
So let's dance now, it is my turn. Just want you out. We represent I am ready for your action. Just wanna work you out.
All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, I have here with me Japhet Omojuwa, and we're discussing the state of the nation. And just to quickly wrap up the conversation now, for whatever constitutional review, whatever might happen, it looks almost inevitable that there'll be elections in 2019, and which is less than 2 years away. Because, like I said, knowing Nigeria, policy is probably going to start by the end of this year.
It started.
The PDP is already sort of back in, in the game. The APC, all of the dynamics are playing out there. What do you want from Nigerians? The sort of questions we need to be asking. What should we demand? And almost want to know the kind of questions we know we will get answers to. Because you can ask questions and not get answers. But what kind of questions should we be asking that we know we should get answers to?
I think from where I'm sitting right now, the most important question is, what kind of leaders do we want? For instance, we prioritized the presidency in 2015. And then now we have seen that in this democracy, there is no superpower president. No matter how well-meaning you intend and whatever, you need the National Assembly. And nobody needs to start talking about the realities in the National Assembly and the things that have, and the jokes and the satire and whatever that has happened in the National Assembly. So we need to define the sort of leaders we want beyond the executive. We have now seen that the legislature is very, very important. We cannot do much about the judiciary because they don't get elected, they don't get appointed in a way that affects us. So we need to define that. Then we also need to ask ourselves exactly what we want, because too many times the conversation is always very, very on unimportant things. So I watch young people having a conversation on Rubbin minds, for instance, on a Sunday, and they're really discussing stuff. And then I try to check the hashtag, and people are talking about what the person is wearing, and people are not talking about the conversation itself. So beyond the fact that we look at our leaders and feel like, oh, these guys are bad, they don't mean well, we need to also understand that you cannot pick a good person to lead a group of armed robbers. So if fundamentally there is something wrong with our leadership, it means that fundamentally there definitely has to be some questions to be asked about our followership. What kind of questions do we ask people when they come to ask us for elections and for their votes? And then we also need to try and improve for each election. For instance, one thing I learned with respect to 2015 is to not just be about what I don't want, but to also be about, okay, what I want, what is it like? Because it's okay to know exactly what you don't want, but knowing what you don't want does not mean that you get what you want. And this is a conversation, and the sort of questions that Nigerians as a collective that mean well must begin to ask.
Would you think this leadership has failed?
I'm not going to say anything that will have people quote me altogether, but definitely they have not met up with the promises that they said they were going to meet up with. I mean, they've come up with some challenges. For instance, nobody could have predicted that the president would have been out. It looks like the acting president is holding forth very, very well. Unfortunately, the realities of 2019 elections will come and would definitely distract them. But at the moment, if I was going to mark it, definitely, I'm not going to promote them to the next class.
So you're going to repeat the 2019?
I'm not going to. Because you say you're party to say, oh, you've done well. And I mean, obviously, they haven't.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Japhet. I mean, it's always nice talking to you. Thanks for being here today. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we have some entertainment talk right here. Please do stay with us.